Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
I am not Brien Hanley. Although I'd be proud to be Brien Hanley, I'm Tim Fitzgerald, sitting in for the Big B today as we do a in-season checkup on the Kansas Jayhawks football team that I got to see Saturday in Manhattan. My colleague Michael Swain from fog.net joins me. And Mr. Swain, I feel like KU is getting better, but the problems that lead to the late defeats obviously are still there because they did it again.
Yeah, they did, Fitz. And for KU fans, look, Saturday's game was probably like a microcosm of the last 16 years of this rivalry game. And also, the first, if what, 2/3 at this point, parts of the season. Yeah. So for KU, it's a lot of the same stuff that you've seen in the Sunflower Showdown specifically, right? KU struggled with special teams mishaps. The muff punt last year, you go back to another muff punt the year before, and this year there's the player fields the ball as he's going out of bounds. I've never seen it before, and it sets up a safety that leads to a 16-0 scoring run, right? We're not talking basketball here. We're talking football. A 16-0 scoring run that really did flip the game on its head early on, and then late in the game, KU's defense really stood firm. And that was a huge encouraging thing in the game because for so much of this year, KU's defense in the fourth quarter in big moments has not been able to get the stops when they have to. And in this game, KU's defense was getting those stops. And then Jalen Daniels fumbles, and it's a costly turnover. And for the last couple of weeks, Jalen's done a very good job of not turning the ball over, but twice, in two really high leverage moments, right? End of the first half when you're looking to go in to halftime, take a lead, flip the momentum back your way. He throws the interception. And KU's defense does get a stop there again at the end of the first half, which was positive. But then at the end of the game, man, why not try and slide? He runs into three players, and that's tough to do. And he falls forward as well. And so it's just tough. And obviously for KU, it's a lot of mistakes that are obviously correctable, and maybe not so much coming from incredible plays where you got to tip your cap to the other team. It's a lot of stuff where I think if you're watching those on film as a KU fan or someone in the program, you're probably thinking, man, if we just taken the safe play on that one, maybe you live to fight another day.
Did the offense forget the existence of Devin Neal late in the game? Because that I couldn't figure it out. The kid's picking up yards. He's making the Kansas State defense account for him, and it opens everything else up. And then I don't know, they gave him the ball 3 times in the last 18 snaps or something. Just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and this has been something that's been talked about a lot throughout the course of the season, is that there are periods in games where Devin Neal just doesn't really get the ball that much. And it's curious, looking back at some of those plays, you can kind of explain it a little bit. On the last drive where Jalen fumbles, right? First down, it's a 2-yard carry from Devin. Then there's a false start on what was going to be a run play for Devin Neal. And then all of a sudden you're in 2nd and long, and you're kind of having to decide whether or not you're going to run and basically kind of concede to punting, or if you're going to try and throw the ball and get a first down and then reset. But yeah, this has been a thing, Fitz. And early in the year, teams decided to stack the box against KU because Jalen was struggling so much that, I think for a good first half of the season, right, Devin would average 6 yards a carry in the first half. And then at halftime, teams would decide, hey, enough of this. And they would go and stack the box, and Devin in the second half would be 3.5, 4 yards a carry. And KU would decide to move away from it. And this game doesn't really fall into that because Devin had the 24-yard touchdown, right, to give KU the lead. And then after that, he touched the ball 4 more times. And you're just thinking, man, undoubtedly your best player on the team, not even offense, on the team, you got to find ways to get in the ball maybe a little bit more down the stretch. And so it's one of those where it's happened before. And I think it's certainly something that had KU fans very frustrated.
I don't cover KU, and I got frustrated with Jeff Grimes. I mean, I'm going to be honest here. I thought he did an incredible job of scheming K-State because nobody's run the ball on K-State this year. Yeah. And yet he found some unique ways to get after him. get to the edge a little bit. You just off tackle. You did a lot of that, and it was effective. Then just move on to the other things. It was odd, but you mentioned it earlier. I thought the KU defense was really good throughout that game. They never gave K-State anything easy. Had to earn everything, inch away. I mean, heck, even on that game-deciding drive, they made them kick a 51-yard field goal.
Yeah.
They didn't let them get to the end zone, which they've done this year. They stopped them. They forced the field goal and a long one, and he made it, which matched his career long. But I think the defense made a major breakthrough.
I think so. And I think for so much of this series, Fitz, KU's been just muscled around in the trenches.
Yep, you're right.
And I think last year was maybe the first year that I looked and saw a team that was equal. And I felt like on Saturday, KU had the slight edge in terms of what they were doing with the KU's offensive line and how they were blocking for Devin and KU's defensive line and what they're able to do down to down. Now, you can say that in K-State, I still think, right, they ran for over 200 yards. And so it's one of those where I think KU down to down consistency, they were pretty solid, right? K-State wasn't getting 6 yards a carry every time they touched the ball. There were still those explosive plays, and a lot of that did come on more outside run concepts where you're forcing some of KU's secondary players to tackle, and that is something that is a challenge, I think, for some of them. And as a result, right, Giddens breaks off the big run. Avery has some big runs on scrambles. Dylan Edwards had some good runs to the outside. But when K-State tried to run between the tackles, they couldn't get anything. And I think that is a huge testament to, I think, the recruiting job Kansas has done in developing some of those defensive tackles, right? That's a group that is experienced, and it's some guys that got more years left as well. But I was really impressed with them. And look, Avery's still a young quarterback, and I think it's very clear that throws outside the numbers are something he's going to improve on over the next couple of years. And it's scary to think what could happen when he does do that. But for this game in particular, I thought KU did come out with a very, very good scheme.
Yep.
And if you really take away the defense being put in an impossible position where they give up a touchdown drive and then they're back out there literally like 3 minutes in real time later and they got to go again. And that is a challenge.
Yep.
But you take that out, K-State's final touchdown was the first drive of the second half. And if you told me going into this game that KU would get, I think K-State had 12 drives. KU had like 7 stops or something like that. If you told me KU got 7 stops in the game, I'd say, wow, that is a recipe for Kansas to win this game. The only difference is, right, is a safety, a missed point after, and 2 turnovers.
Yep. It's did themselves in so many ways. They are playing better. They've shown that. Beating Houston convincingly, not turning the ball over, by the way. Then playing nose to nose with K-State, honestly playing better than Kansas State and finding a way to lose. It seems like things are turning up, and then you look at the schedule and you're like, oh, crap. Somehow KU pulled, with the week off this week, the 4 top teams in a row. Now, at the start of the season, it didn't look that way. It looked like a manageable stretch of games.
Yeah.
But you start with a game you thought would be difficult, Iowa State at Arrowhead next Saturday, coming up on the 9th. And then you line them up at BYU, host Colorado, and then you go to Baylor, which is playing better. Dear Lord. I mean, you could have scripted a worse ending for KU just when they're starting to show some signs of life. But then again, they might end up being a disruptor in this, what we expect to be entertaining stretch run by 4 teams. They might beat someone along the way.
Yeah, and it fits. I love the Big 12 right now because going into the season, right, if you're a KU fan, right, you're thinking, man, you miss Oklahoma State, you miss Arizona, you miss Utah, you miss Oklahoma. Like, you're thinking, man, this is awesome. And now you look at the schedule, you're like, dang, well, playing Utah would have been nice. Playing Oklahoma State would have been nice. Arizona's coach is outside the stadium an hour before the game starts. That'd be nice. And now all of a sudden you look at it and it's BYU. That game's going to be 9:30 Central. It's going to be the late kick. Playing Iowa State is never easy. And with the way Iowa State season has gone, those fans are going to travel. And it is going to be an Iowa State home game at that game. And that's just tough to deal with. And so those are two tough back-to-back games. And you come back and it's Colorado. And, Travis Hunter's been banged up a little bit. But look, they've got some serious talent. And for KU, so much of the season, they've allowed explosive passes. And what is Colorado really good at? It's just chucking the ball down to Travis Hunter and Horn and just letting them go be incredible football players. So those 3 games are really tough. But Fitz, here's the thing. KU's going to be in all of them. I guarantee this right now. It will be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. Will KU end up winning those games? I have no idea. History tells me no, because they will find a way to mess it up, whether it be a defensive mistake, whether it be an offensive turnover or an offense just stalling at the wrong time. We've got enough data points throughout the course of this season now that show us that when these games are close, Kansas has found ways to lose and not ways to win. Now, could they fix this all of a sudden and go on a run? 100%. That's the thing about this team that is so fascinating. And I think if you're a KU fan, probably frustrating is a better word, is the fact that you see it with this team where they are better than the other team for about 50 of the 60 minutes. But those 10 minutes are pretty dang disastrous and really do flip a lot of these games. And so for KU, it's going to be about putting together really strong 4 quarters. And they were close to doing that against K-State, right? It's really a 5-minute stretch in the first half and like a 3-minute stretch in the second half. But again, those stretches are really important. And so, Iowa State's going to be a tough team, right? They've struggled to stop the run this year a little bit, but Rocco's a gamer and he's a tough guy to stop because he can hurt you so many different ways. BYU's a physical team. They don't lose at night in Provo. And it's just a tough schedule for a team that has just struggled in some of those key moments. And I'm really interested to see how the season finishes out, Fitz, because KU's got a lot going on. Whether it be NIL fundraising for the stadium, just trying to get the hype back because they open a brand new stadium next fall. Going 2-10 is bad. 4-8 looks a lot better at the end of the season record. If you can get a 5-7, if you're able to win some of these games down the stretch, but there's a lot at stake for this KU program over the next month because they've got to finish this season stronger. Because if they don't, if things peter out, Fitz, at the end of the year and KU isn't in 1-score games and the games look different, a lot of momentum's gone. And KU's trying to still fundraise for the second phase of the stadium project. They're trying to raise funds for NIL so they can keep some of the talented players and go in the portal and acquire talent that can replace the 30 seniors they're going to lose. There's a lot at stake for KU over the next month.
Yeah, normally I would look at a situation like this and with the stadium and not having essentially a home field as part of the problem, but I don't know if that's true in this case. Maybe it'll be true if Iowa State rolls in with 40,000 fans, but I don't feel like it's been stadium related, that they don't, have a true home field. I just feel like they are what they are right now, and they're hard to explain and yet easy to explain, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain how they can consistently do the things that they do, but they do those things and they lose. Has the stadium played any role in your view?
I think slightly, and I think almost more in the way the first, college football is wild, Fitz, because it's really 3 months and there's a 9 months leading up to that you don't see. The fact that those 9 months leading up to, the start of the season were so different. The players didn't have a locker room. And they were using the visitors' locker room on the other side of the stadium. And so much of this stuff can make for a weird feeling, I think. And not having a stadium to, quote unquote, go back to where you are comfortable, where you do have that rapport is different. And I don't know if it's one of those where it's, KU not having a crazy, atmosphere at home games on a Saturday is impacting so much as it is just feeling comfortable, and being around a stadium and, the facility obviously is new and Katie's practicing and all that stuff, but more so just having that comfort when you go to the stadium on Saturday, right? When you show up, you're in that same locker you were in all week. it's different. You're in the Chiefs locker room.
I get that.
Like,
That's
it's
a great
going to
point.
feel a little different, where it's still going to feel a little bit like a road game, even if you've got more fans there than the other team. So I don't know if it's as much of an atmosphere as it is just a baseline comfort level. And it's hard to quantify that. It
Yeah.
really is. I can't tell you if that's worth 1 point, 3 points, or just vibes. And that's the challenge of trying to really figure out this team right now.
A lot of things going on at Kansas, but boy, this is going to be a big offseason. This is Lance Leipold is cycling through for the first time, which all new coaches face at some point. They lose their key players, the ones they build around, and they have to essentially rebuild. Are they in pretty good shape with that?
We'll see, Fitz. Honestly, a lot of it's going to come down to player retention. A lot of it's
Mhm.
going to come down to what they do in the portal. I think it starts with Jalen Daniels and retaining him, because he does have one more year left, and keeping him around will be very, very, very important. Like, that is the number one domino for Kansas this offseason. Can you keep him around? Because you lose all your wide receivers. And if you go into the portal and say, hey, Jalen just played all 12 games. Yeah, he knocked off Russ early in the season, but look at the final 6 games and what he did. That's a really good recruiting tool. Whereas the other way around is, if you lose Jalen, all of a sudden you got to go to the portal, and now you're recruiting a portal quarterback with no wide receivers, with no Devin Neal, and it's a different conversation. So this offseason starts with Jalen. And from there on offense, it's about building out that wide receiver room, because KU loses a ton. And they've got to get playmakers and guys that consistently can do it and have production elsewhere. And I know K-State ran into this, but that's not cheap. You're really not going to find a really good wide receiver for less than $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough. So KU's going to have to really evaluate some guys very well at that position. And then defensively, look, you lose Kobe and Mello at corner. You lose your top 4 linebackers.
Wow.
They're going to have to go and buy starters at linebacker and buy a starter probably at corner. The nice part is defensive tackle, they do retain a lot. Defensive end, they retain a lot of talent. But linebacker is going to be critical and really remaking that room, because this is the first time that KU is really going to have to go in and reset. And that could be a positive, because I think you could say that KU's linebackers, Cornell and JB have been very good this year, but there's been a big drop off with Talon Berryhill. It's very clear that the coaches don't have the most trust in someone like Alex Reich. And so it's just going to be a big reset, Fitz, and it's going to come down to NIL money, because that's what it is in the portal these days. And if you don't have NIL money to offer, what you're going to end up getting is a lot of group of 5 players who are going to be super seniors who want 1 year to play at a Power 5 school. Right. And for KU, like last offseason, they didn't have portal money, because a lot of that went to this team and keeping these guys around. And so they went out and got a Dylan Woodkey, a guy from Youngstown State who KU beat Boise State for. He's been a very solid player this year. I think he's been better than I expected, but he's not a game changer at the Big 12 level. And KU needs to go out and get game changers at the Big 12 level to be able to mitigate the losses that they have, and then provide a bridge to some of those high school players that KU's getting, because KU basically didn't have a 2022 high school class. Yeah, 2022, I want to say. They had like 8 players from the high school ranks, and I think 5 of them are still around. So there's a huge gap in the middle of this roster right now in the sophomore class, that they've got to go and get a bunch of guys, I think, in the portal that are kind of in that sophomore junior range, because those will be guys that are around. They can learn the scheme. And hey, maybe the 2025 season, KU goes 6-6, 5-7. That's perfect. But then the next year, you're able to build that momentum into 2026 and really getting back into being in kind of that 9-win competition. So it's a lot at stake, Fitz. And for someone like myself that covers it, I'm excited, but also it's going to be a crap ton of work, and that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll be a crazy off season. I know this. KU's got one of the best in the business in Lance Leipold and Michael Swain. How's that?
I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mike. We'll get you on here pretty soon. We're going to start our basketball previews. We might not do that till after football, but you'll be at the top of the list, because I don't know if you know this. KU basketball is going to be really good. I just thought.
Are they?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice. That's good to know.
Yep. That's it for this update on the KU Jayhawks, the best 2-6 team you'll ever see. It's beginning to alter my belief in the phrase "you are what your score says you are" or your record says you are, because they're not. How much have they outscored opponents now? Do you know that number?
Oh no, I don't. But considering Houston and Lindenwood, I think they would still be in the positive because
they're way in the positive.
Game.
It's insane. That's it for this checkup on the Kansas Jayhawks on the Big 12 Insiders. Big B will be around all day posting all kinds of content. Make sure you check it out. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.